every time you get a chance to play at home court, it's a privilege. You got to take care of home court.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Fantrax and Basketball Monster. And today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Basketball is sponsored by Draft, a daily fantasy app where your chances of winning are almost 3 times better than on FanDuel or DraftKings. Download Draft now or go to playdraft.com. Be sure to enter the promo code LOFANTASY when you download to get a 100% deposit bonus. My name is Josh Lloyd, and as always, you can find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. We've got Sunday's games to break down. We've got a week ahead to look at. We've got Monday's DFS action to preview. So,
let's get to it.
Before we get into that, a couple of things. I made a really bad mistake in my DFS lineups today. Had a great one and didn't enter it into the GPP over on DraftStars, and I would have come second. So that's not ideal. The big, and when I say the big tournament, that said the Australian tournaments aren't that big, but second prize was $600, I think, and didn't enter my my lineup into that. So that was extraordinarily disappointing, but still cashed everywhere else. Just a mistake on my behalf not to enter my cash lineup into the tournament, but oh well. That's the stuff that happens. We've got stuff that we need to cover. So let's get straight into it, because there is a lot of stuff that is happening in the NBA. What we're going to start off with first, though, is looking at the week ahead, looking up at who plays when, how you can help set a weekly league, how you can maximize your streaming efforts during the week. This is a weird week. The games are very spread. There are no teams that play only 2 games. It's only 4 and 3 game weeks. So your weekly lineup decisions, they're going to be a little bit trickier. You're not going to be, I've got to start the 5 game guy. I've got to sit the 2 game guy. It's going to be 4 versus 3. Who's got the better schedule? Who's got the playing at home versus playing away? Who's got situations where they might miss a game due to a back-to-back? That's the way you're going to have to look at all this stuff this week. When we look at it, on Monday, we've got 7 games. On Tuesday, we've got 6 games. On Wednesday, we've got, you know what? That is the wrong thing, and I am really annoyed that that's the wrong thing that's up on the screen, so I apologize for that. Let's try that again, because those numbers, ignore that. If you're watching the video, ignore it. Week 4, we're looking at 8 games on Monday, 5 games on Tuesday, 11 games on Wednesday, 5 games on Thursday, 10 games on Friday, 9 games on Saturday, and 6 games on Sunday. You know, I like to look at these things and talking about from a daily point of view. When I talk about it, we talk quality games, and you would have heard me speak about quality games before. The default we have over on Basketball Monster is 5. I like to go higher than that, because in general, if you've got a 10-man active spot and 3 bench guys, if there's 8 games on or less, you can fit everyone into your active spots. If you've got more than 8 games played, you might have a bench guy. If you've got less, then there's no problem. So I look at it as 8. So that's the way that I like to look at these days. So that means that this week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, there are less than 8 games. On Wednesday, on Friday, and on Saturday, if you add someone on the waiver wire off those days, you probably won't be able to get them into your lineup. And it varies, obviously, depending on what players you have from what teams and whether these guys actually fit into your lineup. But as a general rule, that's the way that I like to look at it. Let's talk about weekly leagues first, though. As I mentioned, no one's playing 2 games. No one's playing 5 games. So the following teams are playing 4. The Blazers, the Thunder, the Sixers, Clippers, Mavericks, Raptors, Celtics, Nuggets, Jazz, Pelicans, Pacers, Knicks, Heat, Hawks, Rockets, Grizzlies, Nets, and Bulls. All those teams are playing 4 games. So that means the Suns, the Magic, the Hornets, the Warriors, the Lakers, the Cavs, the Wolves, the Wizards, the Bucks, the Nuggets, the Spurs, and the Kings are all playing 3 games. But we should know by now that not all 4-game weeks are created equally, and not all 3-game weeks are created equally. When we have a look for a weekly league purposes, you're probably going to have to be choosing between which 3-game guys do I start and which 3-game guys do I sit. Well, look at Phoenix. They play Denver, they play Indiana, they play Philadelphia. That's the cream of the crop when it comes to 3-game weeks. Look at Sacramento. They play the Spurs, they play the Clippers, they play the Raptors. That is a shitful 3-game schedule. Terrible. So the teams you're looking at with really nice 3-game schedules, the Suns, the Magic, the Hornets, the Warriors, they've got nice, from a weekly standpoint, nice 3-game schedules. The Spurs, the Kings, the Nuggets, the Bucks, they don't have things quite as rosily for their 3 games this week. When we want to look at it on a daily point of view, it's a little bit different, because I said the Warriors have got a great 3-game schedule, and they do, because they play against the Raptors, the Celtics, and the Bucks, so there's some value to be had there. But they play all 3 of them on the road, and they play all 3 of them on full days. So adding a Warriors bench guy, whether that's Zaza Pachulia, Andre Iguodala, maybe you're feeling saucy and you're grabbing JaVale McGee or Patrick McCaw, you're not going to be able to start these guys. So it doesn't matter how good the opponents are. When it comes on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, they don't play. All right, so that there is a big difference there. Where, as opposed to that, say the Timberwolves, who don't have great opponents, the Hornets are a tough out, the Grizzlies and the Sixers are their 3 opponents, but 2 of those games come on light days where you're going to be able to use those players. So getting a Timberwolves guy in, much like a guy we're going to talk about later, Nemanja Bjelica, maybe he has some value in a 2-game situation. But the 2 games is not the best. There are a few teams who have got 3 quality games during the week. We start off with the Portland Trailblazers, who have got that. The Utah Jazz have got that. The New York Knicks have got that. The Miami Heat, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Chicago Bulls. They all play 3 games on those light scheduled days. So they're the teams you should be looking at, whereas the Clippers play 4 games and only one of them comes on a light day. So not that you'd be adding many there. It's got maybe Luke Marmute, who's played over 30 minutes in the last couple of games and had 15 points and gets some blocks and steals. He's not going to have value because you're not going to be able to use him. Guys on Boston, maybe Kelly Olynyk, he's maybe not the best example because he could have long-term value, but maybe somebody like Amir Johnson you look to add. They play 4 games, great, but you might only be able to use him once. That's not ideal. New Orleans Pelicans, Terrence Jones. Is he going to start? Is he going to come off the bench? Who knows? Is he going to be crap? Most likely. But they only play 1 game this week, so if you add him, you're probably not going to be able to use Terrence Jones. So that is the difference. The Lakers play 3 games, but 2 of those are on light scheduled days. The same with the Timberwolves. And that's better than, say, Memphis, the Pelicans, the Celtics, the Pistons, the Mavericks, the Clippers, who only play 1 game. So that's the way that you want to be approaching, looking at this schedule and looking at these teams and how they play. Now, we often look at how can we take advantage of this with back-to-back players, getting bang for your buck with your weekly acquisition limits. Well, the light scheduled days, we're talking Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So the only back-to-back we really should be paying attention to there is Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, there'll be teams that play Tuesday, Wednesday back-to-backs, but you're probably not going to be able to use that guy on Wednesday because they only play 11 games are on 22 teams play. So you're in essence adding them for Tuesday. If you want to get bang for your buck, you do it now to get that Monday, Tuesday back-to-back when you can probably use that player on both Monday and Tuesday. And the list of teams that play both Monday and Tuesday, it's minimal. It's the Miami Heat and the Brooklyn Nets, but that doesn't mean that it's useless because there's value there. Joshie Richardson should be owned in all leagues. Even say it's a 10-team league and maybe you can't find room, now's a great time in your streaming spot. 2 games. Yeah, it's against the Spurs and the Hawks, so it's not ideal, but it is still 2 games, and Goran Dragic is going to miss at least one of those. Tyler Johnson is another guy that you would look at in that situation, and you could add him, and you could get 1 game where he's probably going to play 28 minutes in both games, regardless of Goran Dragic's status. On the Brooklyn Nets, maybe you get 2 good games from Isaiah Whitehead, Justin Hamilton, Bojan Bogdanovic, Sean Kilpatrick if he is still available. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, who should be owned anyway, given the way that he's starting to play. But they're the 2 teams. The Heat and the Nets at the start of the week, they're the 2 teams who start off the week with a back-to-back. None of these other back-to-backs really matter. Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They're not ones that really are huge. What can be huge is a Tuesday, Thursday. Now, it's not a back-to-back because obviously Wednesday comes in the middle of those 2 days. But with 11 games on Wednesday, that doesn't matter. You can do one ad, get him on Tuesday, and use him on Thursday. So the Blazers, they have the Tuesday, Thursday semi-back-to-back. The Miami Heat also have that. So the Heat start off the week brilliantly with a Monday, Tuesday back-to-back and then Thursday. So it's one ad for 3 games, basically. You've got the Chicago Bulls have got the Tuesday, Thursday. And that's it. Also, not true. The Minnesota Timberwolves have got a Tuesday, Thursday back-to-back. So that's another way that you can take advantage of the schedule. The other semi-back-to-back is the Thursday, Saturday. So who have we got there? The Philadelphia 76ers play the Thursday, Saturday. The Utah Jazz play Thursday, Saturday. The Miami Heat... No, sorry. Where am I? Yeah, the Miami Heat play... The Miami Heat have got a brilliant schedule. They play Thursday, Saturday as well. Actually, Saturday's not a good day, is it? No, it's Thursday, Sunday. My mistake. Ignore my Thursday, Saturday talk. I'm getting all flustered here. Let's go back to the start. The Blazers, they play Thursday, Sunday. So that's a decent combo. The Utah Jazz play Thursday, Sunday. The New York Knicks play Thursday, Sunday. The Chicago Bulls play Thursday, Sunday. So those teams there, yeah, Friday and Saturday are in between, but you probably won't be able to use them on those days. There's 11 and 9 games on those 2 days, so you won't be able to use them. But Thursday, Sunday, you can. So you're looking at Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Thursday, Sunday as your 3 sort of groupings of games where you can target it and get guys for minimal acquisitions. Remembering that those bigger days, those higher volume days, are not days where you're necessarily going to be able to use that player. So that's important to know. It's important to pay attention to that as well. All right, let's talk about today's sponsor, and that is playdraft.com. I already know that you guys love playing fantasy, because otherwise, why listen to this? Well, that's not true, because I know people who don't play fantasy listen to this podcast as well, and I do appreciate you guys. But why don't you give this new app called Draft a go? It's a simple daily fantasy app. It's daily fantasy, but it's snake draft. It's not salary cap, so it's just like what we do at the start of the season when we kick off our leagues. The leagues only last for 1 day though, so it's a snake draft that takes 1 day. Easy. You can do it for free, or better yet, you can play for money and try and get your hands on some cash in a different sort of daily format, and your odds of winning are almost 3 times better than, say, on DraftKings or FanDuel. When you go to download Draft, go to your app store or go to the website, which is playdraft.com. Download it, but use the promo code. Not only does it tell the guys at Draft that you came from listening to Locked On Fantasy Basketball, but it gives you a 100% deposit match bonus. So you put in $20 and they put an extra $20 into your account. And that promo code you want to use is LO Fantasy. Straightforward. L for locked, O for on, fantasy. That's it. Go to playdraft.com, download the app, or download the app straight out of your app store. Use that promo code, LO Fantasy, and get a 100% deposit bonus. You can go in there, get free money given to you, use it, use your knowledge, and use what you hear me discuss on this podcast, or you speak to me on Twitter, and turn that free money into more free money for yourself. And do it with a familiar concept. If you've been a little bit hesitant with playing daily fantasy, you don't like the salary cap format, maybe the snake draft way is the way to go, and that's what Draft provides to you. So go to playdraft.com, go to your app store, download the Draft app, and use that promo code LO Fantasy and get a 100% match deposit. Very, very easy. The monstrous line of the night. There was a few guys who are in the running for this, but Dame Lillard snags it for Sunday's action. He was fantastic. I'm sure you're well aware of the sort of numbers that Lillard has been putting up of late. The competition wasn't probably the highest that it's been in some of the games he's played against the Nuggets, but 32 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 triples, 4 steals, 7 of 18 from the field, and he hit all 15 of his free throws, which is massive on a Sunday. You're coming into a week where your free throw percentage is maybe tight on the last day of the week, and Lillard comes out there and bangs in all 15 of them. That can have a real swing on that category. And that's exactly what Dame did. He's turning in a really, really fantastic season. He's averaging almost 31 points a game and almost 3 triples a game. His rebounding is up. But the thing that does hold him back, and has always held him back, is his lack of steals. He's only at 0.9, so not much has changed there, and his assists are well down, which was a bit of a concern coming into this season with the addition of Evan Turner, that his assists would suffer, and he's down over 2 assists a game, down from 6.8 to 4.6. Now, the reason that his value is up is because instead of shooting 42%, which he did last season, he's shooting at 49%. That's massive. He's shooting at 39% from 3, and he was a 34 guy last year from 3. Now, the addition of Turner probably, and the emergence of McCollum does open up a little bit of scoring for Lillard, but I don't believe that he's going to be able to hold at 49% from the field. That just doesn't feel realistic, given that throughout his career he's been 43, 42, 43, and 42 from the field. So I don't think that he's going to all of a sudden become a 49% shooter. I think we'll get some regression down to the 44, 45% area, and that's going to cause his value to drop and sort of stay and hold around that middle of the second round, where at the moment he's returning top 10 value. The fact that when that field goal percentage comes down, his assists are still going to be lower, his steals are still not going to be great. It's going to affect his scoring as well. So you could see a bit of a drop from Lillard outside the top 20. I know that Lillard fans are probably thinking I'm being a little bit negative towards him, but I just want to look at it from a realistic point of view. Can Dame Lillard continue to shoot at 49%? All information that we have about the way that he plays tends to say no. And after 11 games, it's been great. We're talking about over 10% of the season. But I just don't believe that it's going to hold at this inflated level. Maybe he's better than the 41.9 he shot last season. That's easily could be the case, no problem. But I don't think it's going to be 49% and 7% better than what he shot last season. I think you're looking at maybe a 44 or 45% guy, and that does drop him down a little bit, but still very hard to complain about the results that Lillard has been giving you lately. And if you want to hear more about Damian Lillard, why don't you check out Locked On Blazers with Eric Gunderson, who's been putting out great content. He has a lot of crossover podcasts with Blazers opponents, and I know I've got lots of Blazer fans who listen to this. Dennis Hickson, one of the OG fans of the podcast, is a massive Blazer fan. Vivek as well, another OG listener, is a big Blazers fan. So why don't you guys, and everyone else who's a Blazers fan, go check out Locked On Blazers and hear what Eric has to say about Lillard's play, but also the integration of Evan Turner, who had a good game today, the big man rotation, Myers Leonard, Noah Vonleh, Mason Plumlee, how all these guys fit in moving forward. Eric has got all that covered, and he was great when I had him on my podcast earlier in the preseason. The waiver wire line of the night goes to the Minnesota Timberwolves. It was a weird situation in Minnesota, whereas just before the game we had, first of all, Shabazz Muhammad's not playing. All right, that came out of nowhere. His knee's sore, cool. Brandon Rush, who had been seemingly a healthy scratch for the last 3 games. Oh no, he wasn't a healthy scratch, actually. He's got a really sore toe. He's got a sprained toe, so he's questionable to play. Okay, that would have been great to know 3 games ago, but unfortunately we didn't know that, so he was listed as questionable. And then the big one came out. Zach LaVine, also, by the way, he's not playing. So you've got no Brandon Rush, you've got no Shabazz Muhammad, you've got no Zach LaVine, and so therefore you've got no wings. So all these guys were out. So that pushed Nemanja Bjelica into the starting lineup. And he and Andrew Wiggins were going to have to carry a significant load with literally no other wings on the... And Bjelica's not even really a wing, he's a 4, but they played him at the 3. They played Wiggins at the 2, and these guys did a lot of good stuff. Bjelica scored 24 points, a career high. He hit 5 triples. He had 8 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. He went 9 of 15 from the field. That's a huge performance from Bjelica. And while I'm at it, he was also the young gun of the night. It's only his second season in the NBA. So I talk psychology, I talk getting in people's heads in fantasy quite a bit. Nemanja Bjelica is the guy, or one of the guys, that whenever something positive, even if it's marginally positive, happens with him, everyone's all over it. I don't know what makes certain people be that guy. I don't know what makes people be the opposite, like a Nick Batum. One stinker, get rid of him, terrible. I don't know what makes Bjelica that guy. But now there's questions. What do I do? Do I grab him? Surely he has to earn more minutes now. Surely he's playing a big role. After this one performance, he has to do everything. Let's grab him. Well, maybe, but LaVine, Muhammad, Rush are all coming back. Do you think that Bielitsa is playing ahead of Wiggins? No. Do you think that Bielitsa is playing ahead of Levine? No. Do you think that Bielitsa is playing ahead of Jeng? Maybe, but this is literally his only good game for the season, when Jeng's had about 6 or 7 of them. Do you think that he plays ahead of Muhammad? Sure, but he already was. Do you think that he's playing ahead of Brandon Rush? Sure, but again, he already was. So what's the upside on Bielitsa here? Yeah, I talked before that the Timberwolves have got a pretty nice schedule for this week, so that makes him interesting in that regard. But for long-term value, what do we expect from Bielitsa? Do we think that he's challenging Gorgie Jeng for that role? I don't think that's on the cards now. Again, this is a game that was forced onto him by necessity, and he came up huge. He played a lot of minutes, and he destroyed the Lakers, really. Him and Wiggins killed them. And Rubio. They killed the Lakers. And it was massive. But is it just opportunity-based, or was it a sea change that Tom Thibodeau goes, shit, maybe we need to play this guy considerably more? I'll lean the former. I don't think that this is all of a sudden going to mean we're getting 40 minutes of Bielitsa or even 30 minutes of Bielitsa moving forward. 14-team leagues, sure. 12-team leagues, if you've got some expendable rubbish at the bottom of your roster, maybe. I just don't see it being a long-term thing. Zach LaVine's injury is not a long-term thing. Shabazz Muhammad's is not a long-term thing. And Brandon Rush is not a long-term thing. All three guys are likely to be back for the next game. And that's going to push Professor Big Shots down to that 18 to 21 minute range. And it's going to limit his ability to do this. Now, he did this a couple of times at the very end of last season and at the very start of last season, where he would come out and have big games and everyone started frothing him to a ridiculous degree. He was coming out, he's a must-own guy. And he came out shooting like 65% in those games. And then he hurt his knee and he was absent for 5 months of the season, basically. Not physically, but in a meaningful way, he did nothing. And started to get it going later. I think he's a good player, but I don't believe that he is going to be pushing top 100 value for this season. And therefore, when I'm considering someone, if I'm going to drop to add him, I need to pay attention to that and pay attention to the circumstances that got Bielitsa this big role here and these big minutes. It was a really weird situation where every wing player was gone. There was none left on the roster. And I think another part we have to look at is that Tom Thibodeau has zero trust in Chris Dunn, because we heard, they'll play Dunn at the 2, they'll play him off ball. Well, they had no 2s on their roster whatsoever. Dunn didn't get 20 minutes. So that's a little bit damning of Thibodeau's thought process on Dunn as well. But huge game from Nemanja. A really, really big performance, but again, we just need to be a little bit careful that we don't go and drop someone with great value or potential higher ceiling moving forward for what may just amount to a one game. And a big explosion it was, but a one-game explosion. The dud of the night, Emmanuel Mudiay just keeps appearing on this show, whether it's in the young gun of the night or whether it's in the dud of the night. He's had some crazy good games and some crazy terrible games. And today was a terrible one, to be honest. He was not good at all. He did finish with 8 points. That's fine. He hit a 3. Oh, great. Good stuff. 2 boards, no assists, no steals, no blocks, and a putrid 3 of 16 from the field. He looked bad as well. He was forcing up shots. He's shooting a disgusting 34% from the field, which is actually down from what he did last season. And he improved significantly at the end of last season, but he is worse than what he was almost to start last year. The positive thing I see with Mudiay is he is shooting 84% from the free throw line, which was obviously a big concern of his last season. And he's still shooting 33% from 3. It's his shot selection and his passing that's the real concern here. He's averaging just 3 assists a game in 31 minutes. Now, do you drop Emmanuel Mudiay? I don't believe you do. He's putting out a stack of turnovers, but you knew that when you drafted him. The field goal percentage is horrific. But again, you had to have some idea that was going to be the case. And it does make him really tough to draft, especially in a 9-cat roto format. It's just not an ideal situation. But I think he gets better than this. He's going to want to get better than this. The Nuggets did close the game with Jameer Nelson over Emmanuel Mudiay at the end of this game, and that's been a little bit of a theme that's happened a couple of times this season, and Jamal Murray is really starting to look like he gets it, so there is some concern, but I don't think there's enough concern for me to just go and drop Mudiay, unless there's someone just staring at you on the waiver wire that you go, I have to get this guy. Mudiay's role is decently secure. We've seen him just last week have two really, really big games in a row where he torched the Celtics and then backed it up with a second big performance as well. So, yeah, it's bad. And he looked bad and he made bad decisions. But I don't think it's an overall referendum on where he sits as a fantasy asset just at this point, which is always good. We don't want players completely falling off in their second season, and we do have to remember that it is just Moutier's second season in the NBA, and let's hope that he does get better. And I am pretty confident that he will get better. Let's look at the games. Let's look at these 5 games. The first one was a pretty good contest. The Charlotte Hornets and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs got the victory, but it wasn't a walk in the park by any means. Nick Batum for the Hornets was good. 15, 9, and 7. 2 steals, 1 block, 1 3. Exactly what you wanted for him. And Kemba dropped another 21 points with 4 triples, and his red-hot start to the season continues. Mick Kidd-Gilchrist. Didn't know if he was going to play. He was dealing with that sore back, but he played. He played 41 minutes. He went 11 and 10, and he had 2 assists and a steal. He guarded LeBron, but importantly, he took 12 shots. Didn't hit many of them, only hit 4, but the 12 shots is important. 10 boards. He's always been an elite rebounder and got a steal. I think he only owned in 57% of leagues, and I'm not really understanding why that percentage is so low. Marv Williams has had a pretty decent week, actually. 16 and 6 for Marv. A good number there for him. Code Zeller, limited, just 14 minutes, and he had 4 fouls in that time. So that's why he was limited. It wasn't that Roy Hibbert was outplaying him. Hibbert played just 13 minutes himself, but they did give Spencer Hawes 20 minutes, and Hawes has acquitted himself quite well while Hibbert has been out, and is probably keeping himself in the rotation, and that's going to put somewhat of a cap on what Zeller can do. Now, Zeller can still have value in the 25 to 26 minute range in a 12-team league, but likely if you own him in a 12-team league, he's probably your worst player or second worst player. And that means that by no means should he be a lock to just remain on your roster the whole season, especially with Hibbert and Kaminsky and Hawes there, who could all chip in and take some of his minutes at any time. Not a good night from Zeller, but again, I think he'll be better than this, but his upside is capped by the presence of those other players. The Cavs box score is a weird one. It was even weirder if you're watching the game. Kevin Love only played 26 minutes. He went 17, 11, and 4 with 2 threes, and Kyrie played just 27 minutes, and he had 19, 3, and 4. And you look at those numbers, and you go, shit, they're good. Yeah, Irving was at 47% shooting. Love was at 60% shooting. They were playing well. But Tyronn Lue went with a LeBron James and the rest of the bench lineup for the entire fourth quarter. He said it's nothing personal. They were just playing really well. And they were. So we saw big doses of Iman Shumpert, big doses of Channing Frye, an inexplicably large amount of Jordan McRae, Richard Jefferson getting out there with those guys and running. So that's why we saw Love and Irving limited, because LeBron was just orchestrating things with bench guys. Frye continues to be a very, very interesting fantasy target. He played 25 minutes, hit 6 triples for 20 points, and blocked 3 shots. He's hitting threes at a ridiculous level, enough to make him ownable if you're looking for threes. And he can chime in that block occasionally too, and have a high free throw percentage. He's hitting threes at a crazy high rate, and the Cavs are going to continue to use him in this role. No doubt whatsoever. As for Shumpert, well, he looks like a completely different player than what he was last season. 15 points including 3 threes. He's shooting at a much higher level. He's getting the steals. He's playing some point guard occasionally. 2 assists in this one. He's owned in 6% of leagues. Channing Frye is owned in 7% of leagues. It's way too low. Way too low. They have a right to be considered in 12 teams, and in 14-team leagues, I don't really see why they should be sitting on a waiver wire. Tristan Thompson bounced back. He had 12 boards in his 30 minutes, also had 3 blocks, and that's pretty much why you want Tristan Thompson on your team. And LeBron, just 19, 8 and 8, 2 threes, 1 steal, 1 block. Pretty good stuff from LeBron, aside from the 8 of 21 shooting. But otherwise, pretty good stuff from LeBron James right there. The Los Angeles Lakers, actually, that reminds me. I tweeted this out today. If you guys have got any requests for t-shirts, let me know. I put up a couple today. There was a DeMar DeRozan Raptors one. There is a Blake Griffin one, and there is one more that I cannot remember. it'll come. A Robin Lopez one out there as well. So there are a couple of ones that got up on the t-shirt store today, which is tpublic.com/user/redrock_bball. If you have any t-shirt requests, players, teams, whatever, let me know and I'll see what I can do about coming up with them. Also got a Justice Winslow and a Jim Butler one that went up in the last couple of days. On to the Lakers and the Timberwolves. Well, the Wolves just destroyed them, really. And Luke Walton's minutes distribution continues. And it doesn't appear like it's going to end anytime soon, but I don't believe that it will continue all season. And that's not what D'Angelo Russell owners want to hear. That's not what Jordy Clarkson owners want to hear. It's not what Julius Randle or Brandon Ingram owners want to hear. But they're still doing their little bits and pieces. We talked about Russell yesterday putting up some decent numbers in limited minutes. Well, he wasn't quite as good here, 7, 4, and 4 with 3 steals, but he's still a guy you hold on to. Jordy Clarkson had 14 in his 22 minutes. We saw Lou Williams only play 18 minutes, but man, his shooting is just on fire. 17 points in 18 minutes, 2 threes and 4 assists. Have to own Lou Williams. It is going to drop, no doubt. He's going to drop off, but he's putting up the numbers at the moment. Brandon Ingram had a 1-1. He is going to be a 1-1 machine in this league, it feels like. 10 points for him in 27 minutes, while Julius Randle went 14, 6, and 3. And this is probably Luol Deng's best game for the Lakers, 13 and 3 in his 24 minutes. But you can do better than that in your standard formats. Swaggy P, Uncle P, 24 minutes for Nick Young, 9 points with not much else. You're still probably just that 14-team league guy. And Tim Mozgov, he fouled out in 15 minutes. 4 and 4 with 2 blocks. You can do better than Mozzie in a 12-team league. Larry Nance is playing some center. We saw Ivica Zubac play 8 minutes in this one with those foul troubles. On to the Wolves. Bjelica played 41 minutes. Wiggins played 41 minutes. This was the state of the wing depth in Minnesota. Andrew Wiggins had a career-high 47 points. He did it on 14 of 21 shooting, which is brilliant. He did it on 17 of 22 attempts from the free throw line, which, depending on how your matchup went, either was really helpful or was actually harmful, because he totaled 77% on big volume. So if your matchup was 81 versus 80, you could have lost free throw percentage. If your matchup was 77 versus 76, you could have caught back up and won. He's right on that borderline average mark where it could have had no impact whatsoever, because could have been right on where your team's free throw percentage was. But it could have had an impact either way, depending on how the free throw battle was looking between you and your opponent, just given the huge volume. But 47 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, 2 threes. We hoped that Andrew Wiggins would take a step forward this season. We projected him to take a step forward, and it's happening. There are going to be some nights where he's a little bit invisible, especially in those peripheral numbers, but his assist numbers, his rebound numbers, his steal numbers, they're improving. His scoring's improving. He's looking good. I tweeted this out today. Rick Rubio. We're getting close to 20 games for the Timberwolves, so allegedly, a trade's coming. The Timberwolves will be as insane as any team could possibly be to trade Rick Rubio. How good is it as a Timberwolves fan or anyone watching the Timberwolves to see a competent point guard out there running with these guys? Rubio played 34 minutes. He had 10 points, which is actually good for him. 4 of 6 from the field is brilliant. He hit a 3. He had 4 rebounds. He had 10 assists. He had 3 steals. This is why if he was dropped in your league, you should have jumped on him immediately, and you should never have dropped him in the first place. I am a massive fan of Rubio. He's probably not going to be this efficient scoring. And by probably, I mean he almost definitely isn't. But the assists are going to be there. The rebounding is really good as a point guard. He does this. The steals are there. He's a good free throw shooter. He can hit threes. This is why that he will remain the starting point guard. It will not be Chris Dunn. It just won't be. If you've watched either of them over the last week, you'll understand why. Dunn played just 14 minutes here. 5 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, while Tyus Jones got 17. So that makes 3 times in the last 4 games that Tyus Jones has played more minutes than Chris Dunn. 17 minutes for Jones, 3 points only, but it was a 3 and it was 5 assists. And he does look the better point guard at this point. Probably long term he won't be. I would love to see Tyus Jones on the Sixers. He'd be really good. The Nets at the moment, he'd be really good. Don't panic as a Chris Dunn owner in Dynasty. Don't own Chris Dunn in a 12-team league. Not at all. Even in a 14 league, I reckon 14-team league, you can do better than Chris Dunn. But in a dynasty situation, he'll be better than this. I still don't have full confidence in him long term, but if his owner's a little bit shaken by what's been happening, see if you can get him at a decent value. But the one thing I always want to remember with Dunn is that he is not a lottery point guard in this upcoming draft, and he's not a lottery point guard the draft before. He was very much a product of the players around him. So considering him a number 5 overall pick is not necessarily fair to his development or to your expectations on him. I don't think anyway. This game was weird, not only because Andrew Wiggins set a career high, Nemanja Bjelica set a career high, but Adrian Payne played, and he had 10 points and hit 2 threes. And that's reason for celebration. He's barely holding on to being into the league at this point, but that was a nice performance from Payne. But take it for what it is, a fluky sort of night. Cole Aldrich, we were pretty interested in him pre-season for his ability to grab defensive numbers and be a high-efficiency player in limited minutes. Hasn't really come to fruition, but 3 steals and a block in 14 minutes is pretty good stuff defensively, and he's always going to be a name to watch if Towns happens to go down at all, which we hope doesn't happen clearly. Towns couldn't get his shot to go. He was terrible in the shooting area. 7 of 22 from the field and 6 of 10 from the free throw line, but 22 and 12 with a block and 2 triples is pretty decent, while Gorgie Jang, just invisible, only took 4 shots, 2 points, but had 9 boards. Not his best performance in that victory over the Lakers. The next game we take a look at is the Orlando Magic and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Talk about weird shit going on. The Magic, who put up 74 points in their last game, came out and dropped 119 on the Thunder. Serge Ibaka had a career high in scoring. And I know a lot of people will come out and say, revenge game. Of course he was going to do it. And then I'd also just instruct that person just to cast your eyes onto the other team in this box score and look at the exact same player who was traded for him, who was in a revenge game situation, Victor Oladipo, who had 12 points. So narratives are great when they fit what you want to say. Same thing goes with contract year players. He had a good year because he's a contract year player. This guy had a shit year in a contract. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Same as revenge game. And a lot of the time it happens. And a lot of the time it doesn't. Ibaka was great though. We have to say that. 13 of 19. 31 points, 9 boards, 4 blocks, 2 triples. This is what you were hoping for when you drafted him. I wouldn't be holding my breath that it's going to continue to happen, because we have seen zero evidence of this coming at all, aside from this one game. And I don't know what they'll continue to do. It was a big win for the Magic here, but do I have faith that Ibaka does this again? No. This is a career high. 31 points, career high. He's never been a big scorer. The 4 blocks is good, but he just hasn't been a shot blocker really the last couple of seasons, so not a high-level shot blocker anyway. A pretty good night from Serge. Just don't get overly excited hoping it happens again. Big night from Lord Alfred Payton though. 23, 7 and 9, 3 threes, 2 steals, 1 block. Brilliant stuff. Can it happen? Well, we've seen it a couple of times from him this season, and then he can fall in a hole. He's only owned in 72% of leagues, which is ridiculous to me. I don't understand how he can be so highly or so lowly owned. He needs to be owned in basically all leagues. You need to see if you can address that. The free throw percentage can be a concern. I'm not that worried about his field goal percentage though. Evan Fournier, another 20-point game, 21 points, 3 triples, 5 assists. This is the Fournier that we thought could be a top 50 type of guy, and getting those 3s and assists is extra bonus on the side. As for Frank Vogel and the big man situation, Nick Vucevic played 19 minutes. He was bothered by some fouls, 4 and 7 with 3 assists. Not a good night from Vooch. Bismack Biyombo therefore played 29 minutes and had 5 and 8. And this is an example to me of why if Biyombo does start, you don't want to own him in a 12-team league. I think that Biyombo is highly overrated as a fantasy asset. Even as a real-life player, I think he's very much overrated. And even if he was playing 30 minutes a night, I wouldn't be scampering out to grab him. I just think his upside is so limited by the fact that he is a rebounds and blocks guy only. Jeffy Green. Lucky he keeps starting. 28 minutes for Jeff Green. 11 points, 3 assists and 2 blocks. That's fine if you're in a 14-teamer. But it's not really moving the needle for a 12-teamer. But what it is doing is just pissing the hell out of us Aaron Gordon owners. Only 22 minutes for Gordon, 12 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, and won 3. And Frank Vogel's reason for making the change to put Jeff Green in the starting lineup, things weren't going well, so we better go back on our trusty vets. That's great, Frank, but Jeff Green is not a trusty veteran. He's a shithouse veteran. It's like saying, let's put Ronnie Price in there because he's old, so he must know stuff. Well, if you're old and no good, it doesn't count. Same as Jeff Green. He can be old, sure. But is he good? No. And what benefit is having Jeff Green in that starting lineup? None. As for Gordon, people are ready to drop him. And I understand that. I wouldn't. I own him lots of places. There's no way I'm dropping him. Because I don't believe that he's going to just languish at a 20-minute role. Although it is the Magic. So Aaron Gordon's probably just as likely to get traded for Nikola Pekovic's $12 million contract where he's not playing. Well, better get us some veteran help. So that's a possibility. It's probably not, but you wouldn't have thought that Toby Harris or Victor Oladipo would be traded. Who knows? Hold on to Gordon. Even with a couple of poor performances, he's still the highest ranked Magic fantasy player on the season. He will get better than this. This is sort of a down point for him this season. Onto the Thunder, another big triple-double from Russ. 41, 12, and 16. 14 of 21 from the field is brilliant, but no threes, no steals, no blocks is not ideal. And 13 of 18 from the free throw line is also not good. I talked about potentially Andrew Wiggins costing you the free throw percentage category. Well, Westbrook very easily could have. On 18 attempts, only hitting 13 of them, going at 72%. That's a big drop in that category for the week. It was always looking like an opportunity for Enes Kanter to go big, and he did. 16 and 8 in 24 minutes. The steal and the block is just a bonus, and this is what he can do. You've got to sort of pick and choose your spots as to when he's going to have a decent game, but this is one of them. That meant that Domantas Sabonis suffered a bit, 3 points in 18 minutes. He's a 12-team guy, but his upside is not high. It's sort of, he might be your 13th best player, and maybe best case scenario, he becomes your 12th best player. I think that's sort of where he sits. Steve Adams with a double-double, 13 and 10. And what's up with Andre Robertson looking competent offensively? 14 points, hit 2 threes, had some nice moves to get some layups and some finishes, and he added a steal and 4 blocks. He's getting 30 minutes a night consistently now. Jeremy Grant is as little a threat as anybody could be. He's getting 13 minutes a night now. He just isn't good, and this is the thing that I was very much on when that trade went down. When a guy can't get regular minutes on the Sixers when they had a need for guys to play that position on the wing, then that probably indicates that he's not good, and he's not getting them now. Robertson's got his minutes bumped up. Should you add Robertson in a 12-team league? Well, as long as you're not expecting 14 points and 2 threes every night, but getting some boards, getting some steal numbers, that's helpful. Vic Oladipo's struggling. 31 minutes for Oladipo, just the 12 points, 2 assists and 1 steal. He's not meshing well with Russell Westbrook. I do believe that he will get better from here, and the defense will start coming back, and some of his assist numbers will start coming. But Westbrook had 16 assists. Oladipo was next with 2, and Samaje Cristone had 2 as well. That is it's just, Westbrook, he can be hard to play with. I'm sure that's the case. And Oladipo's sort of finding where he needs to be. This is, like Aaron Gordon, this is pretty much the low point of where Oladipo will be. I'm sure he will get better than this as things start to improve. Now, he only took 9 shots. Robertson took 11, Kanter took 13, and Adams took 13. It's way too little for a guy like Oladipo to be taking just 9 shots, and I imagine that will change as we move forward. Some nice flashes from Alex Abrines as well, who had a couple of nice power moves. 7 points in 19 minutes. He is a name to watch in the deeper leagues. Phoenix and Golden State. Tyson Chandler was back with the team, but he did not play. Initially, it was said, he's going to be active, and then about 5 minutes before tip, they said, actually, nah, sorry, next minute, not playing. So he was out. Alex Len started, but it's Watson. 18 minutes in the start for Alex Len, 9 and 6. He didn't look great, but I didn't think he was disgustingly bad. Foul trouble was a real problem for him here, so they were able to go with guys like Marquise Chris and Dragon Bender. Now, Bender continues to impress me. It's just finding it hard to get minutes. 14 minutes, 5 points and 2 rebounds with a block and a 3. In Dynasty Leagues, you absolutely have to be trying to get this guy because he can comfortably be the second best player in this class. I'm sure that is his ceiling. It's not a strong class, but he's a very good player. The Marquise Chris starting experiment is weird. Yeah, he's starting, and he's going to be starting moving forward. But surely if you're Earl Watson, that when you say, all right, we're making the move to go young, and Jared Dudley came out and said the same thing, I'm here as a team man, we know the team is building for the future, we want to start developing our young guys, I'll step to the bench, I'll work with these young guys on the bench, let's give Chris a go in the starting lineup. Why is Dudley now playing more minutes than he was when he was a starter? It's all well and good to make Marquise Chris a starter. Marquise, you're a starter. Yeah, thanks, coach. 2 thumbs up. But we're also going to play you less than we were before. And we're going to your backup, who's taking a lesser role, will actually make that role bigger. Where's the logic? Now, Dudley has been playing very well. 14, 3 and 5 with 3 triples for Dudley. And in a 14-team league, with the way Watson's running things, I think you've got to look at owning Dudley. But the logic, long-term thinking behind it doesn't make sense. In this one, I give it a pass a bit because Chris did foul out in 16 minutes. He had 4 and 6, and in general, he's lost out there. And I think that's going to be a case for a while for Chris. That's just the way that he tends to be, and it's why you're not quite sold on him as a prospect. But I don't understand the let's move. Okay, Dudley was holding the spot. Let's move him to the bench, and now let's play him more. That logic just defies explanation to me. If you're looking to build for the future by making this move, do it and play Chris 25 minutes and see what he can do. Don't play him 18 minutes and pull him out after 4 minutes and say, oh, sorry, mate, you're going to have to sit down now so we can get the veteran back in there. Don't make this symbolic move of starting a guy if you've got no intention of actually playing him and developing him. As for Chris, I added him in 12-team leagues. Bang, they're starting him. Let's see where it goes. Well, where it's going at the moment is in smash into a brick wall. I'm dropping him. I don't think there's any point in holding him in 12-team leagues. Bender's outplayed him. Dudley's outplayed him. And Watson's showing no faith in giving him developmental minutes. He's going to play the Noah Vonleh, let's start and play 15-minute role and do jack shit in that. That's basically what he's going to do, which does nothing for a player's development whatsoever. So I don't think you need to hold on to Chris. PJ Tucker got 27 minutes, so that's beneficial for the future. 8 and 8 with 2 steals and a block for Tucker. And this was probably Brandon Knight's best game, 10, 2 and 3 with a 3 in 25 minutes. But the minutes aren't there. So in a 10-team league, I don't think that Knight is a must-hold player anymore. A good 20-pointer from Eric Bledsoe, 23 and 5, while TJ Warren had 23 and 2 with 4 steals, while Devin Booker 19, 4 and 3. 2 steals, a block, and a 3. And these are the 3 key guys for the Suns now. Warren, Booker, and Bledsoe. And they start to develop. You add Bender into that mix, and maybe you can run, at some point in the future, a Bender-Chris 4-5 combination with Bledsoe, Booker, Warren. That's the makings of a young nucleus that could do some damage. Bender's the one to watch. He's a very good player. The Warriors, Steph, 30, 6 and 6, 2 steals and 5 triples. Durant, 29, 9 and 5 with a couple of blocks and a couple of threes. And Draymond went 14, 7 and 11 with 3 steals and 2 blocks. Exactly what you hoped these guys would do. And remember when Klay Thompson couldn't hit shots? Well, forget about that now. 11 of 18 for Klay for 30 points. 5 triples on 8 attempts, 2 rebounds and 1 assist. Now, still doesn't do anything in these other categories, but the shooting, which was really dropping his value down, is back as to be expected. If you're going to make yourself a note, get yourself a tattoo. The first 2 weeks of the season, weird shooting percentages happen. They will change. And this is what we look at if people are just slaves to rankings, player raters, and they go, oh my God, Klay Thompson's ranked 150th, and they start panicking when all of it's to do with the fact that the shots just aren't falling, then that's how you can take advantage or make sure that you don't get fooled into making the incorrect decision. JaVale McGee was the first man off the bench for this team, but he played a total of 3 minutes, while Zaza is struggling to get 15 minutes. He played 12 here, had 4 and 6. Clearly there's no room for Zaza in a 12-team league. Off the bench, Pat McCaw, he's going to be a good player. Only the 18 minutes, but had 6 points, both from threes, had a steal, had 2 blocks, and this is what he can do. He can get steals in big amounts. He can hit threes, and he can pass. Andre Iguodala, we're already seeing the decline of Iguodala. He's starting to drop off. Maybe it takes 2 seasons, but McCaw's going to become Iguodala. That's the role he's going to play on this team, and whether he's involved in a trade or players leave or whatever happens to the Warriors, McCaw is going to be a consistent player. He has really good dynasty value at this point, and I think he's going to get better because he's going to be a steals, a threes, an assists, and a scoring type of player. And he's already proving, at this level, 10 games into an NBA career, well, he hasn't even played 10 games because he's been injured, but providing that you don't suck on defense is huge. And not only does he not suck, that he's actively like a positive. And not many rookies can say that. And when you can do that, and you've got some offensive game where your passing's there and your shooting's there already, there's a lot to like about McCaw. So the Warriors have got a really nice player there who is going to develop, have a key role this season, but going to develop into having a much bigger role moving forward. Denver and Portland. I don't want to go in on Michael Malone again. There's no point in it. What I do want to do is give a shout out to Kenneth Fareed for listening to this podcast. I accept your thanks, Kenneth, for motivating you to put up an 18 and 14 double-double with a steal and 4 blocks in 28 minutes, which is great. I also don't necessarily recommend adding Kenneth Fareed on the basis of this game, but that's a big performance, probably or easily his best performance of the season. And he started off, I think he had 15 points in the first quarter, which means he had 3 points for the remainder of the game. Malone came out and had a quote, which I'll paraphrase. I feel really bad for Nikola Jokic. He had a great season last season as a rookie, did all the right things, it was fantastic for us, and I mucked him up. I played him in the wrong position, I tried to go big, and it didn't work, and I've affected his play, and I've affected his confidence, and we need him to get back in business. Well, the positive thing I'll say is that he played 26 minutes of Jokic here. That's fine. Jokic's play was not quite there. He had 5 fouls in that time, and he had 0 points. He went 0 of 3 from the field. But he had 5 boards, he had 3 assists, he had 1 steal, which is getting back in business. He played him more at centre, which is what he needed to do, and the minutes were back up there. So Malone acknowledges the issue and sees it, and with another loss piling up, Jokic is going to have to turn this form around. No doubt about that. He's not playing well, but a lot of it is not his fault as well, especially to start this season. People are very much ready to drop Nikola Jokic. I am not dropping Nikola Jokic. I don't care really what's happened so far. I know he's a good player. We saw it last season. We saw it, well, you probably didn't actually see it, but in the Adriatic League, he was a very good player. Historic numbers last season. Historic type numbers in the Adriatic League. He is a good player. You don't forget over the course of 10 games how to be a good player. Yes, he was out of position. Yes, his confidence is copping it at the moment. You don't forget how to be a good player at this point. So Nik Jokic, I'm buying low. I'm grabbing him off a waiver wire. I'm not dropping him unless I'm, say, in a 6-team league, maybe an 8-team league. I'm not dropping him. It's bad. But 26 minutes is good. And to be honest, Malone has a lot more issues with Jusuf Nurkic than he does with Jokic. Nurkic played just 19 minutes here, had 8 and 9 in a block, but he has a lot of... Malone and Nurkic butt heads a lot, and I wouldn't say that Malone is the most forgiving person out there, so there's a concern with Nurkic. I'm more concerned with Nurkic than I am with Jokic, and Jokic is a better player. There's no doubt in my mind that Jokic is a better player than Nurkic. I like Nurkic a lot. I think he's a good player. But Jokic is a better player. So I don't think we need to panic all that much. The Rooster, Danilo Gallinari, went 19 and 7. Wilson Chandler was back. He went 18 and 7. He's got some sneaky 12-team league value. He's going to get these 27 minutes a night, and he scores well. He doesn't do much of anything else, but he's playing a decent role. Juancho Hernan-Gomez looks solid, and we had Jameer Nelson, who started for Gaz Harris. Now, Gaz was out with an ankle problem. 33 minutes for Nelson, 7, 4, and 2. Just a 14-team league, maybe short-term ad for Nelson. That's about it. Nothing too exciting. What I loved was Jamal Murray, who looked great. He played 28 minutes. He had 19 points, including 5 triples, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist. Murray's going to be good. Better than the 7th pick in this draft. I've got no doubt about that. I think he's better than Dunn. I know he's better than Hield. I think he's better than Jaylen Brown as well. Be interesting to see what happens with him over the course of this season. But he played 28 here with Gaz out. He's going to struggle to get that. Harris is super important to what this team does. and Barden's still got to come back as well. So it's unlikely that Murray has 12-team league value moving forward, but he is a name to watch for the deeper leagues. On to the Blazers, 21 from CJ McCollum on 23 shots, so not a good night shooting. 4 dimes, a steal, a block, and 2 triples helps you out. 24 minutes for Mason Plumlee. He was limited in this game, not by fouls, just by coaching, 11 and 9. And we saw a big game from Evan Turner, his best game for the team, 14, 5 and 5 with 2 steals in 29 minutes. Alan Crabb, I don't think there's any place for Alan Crabb in 12-team leagues, 4 points in 31 minutes, while Mo Harkless is the opposite. I think he can be owned and should be owned. 17 and 6 for Harkless, 2 blocks, 2 triples. This is what he can do, and he's going to really take advantage of this Al-Farouq Aminu absence. 7 boards from Ed Davis off the bench, and we had Myers Leonard get another start in place of Aminu, 11 and 4 in 25 minutes for Leonard, but let's leave Myers for maybe a 16-team league guy at this point. We're also getting non-junk time Jake Layman. He only played 4 minutes and had 1 block, and that's it, but he's into the rotation, so he's already ahead of a guy like Pat Connaughton, and he's proving that he's going to be maybe just a decent back-end rotation player for this team moving forward. But it was a good performance from Jake Layman to actually just get himself into the rotation, I guess is probably the best way of saying that. That is it for Sunday's action. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back to look at Monday's action for DFS games.
I saw your picture today, got me thinking about the things that I would say, but I know you're happy now when you're someplace far away, and I can't remember the way you taste. I walk down your old street, and I wonder if we'll ever meet again. Without a second glance, you turned your back, my friend. This is the end, and I can't pretend I'm ready to be your friend, so don't go.
Alright guys, we're back, and we're going to start by looking at DFS action from Sunday. Let's look at the perfect lineups on FanDuel. Russ Westbrook at 77.4 and Lord Alfred Payton at 50.9. At the shooting guard position, Nick Batum had 41.3 and Devin Booker had 33.3. Small forwards, Wigo had 56.3, Kevin Durant had 49.3. At power forward, it was Serge Ibaka at 47.8 and Nemanja Bjelica at 45.1, and the centre was Steve Adams at 28 for a total of 429.4. Over on DraftKings, Russ had 83.5, Evan Turner 31.75, Wigo had 58.5, Bjelica had 48.5, Ibaka had 50.25. Lord Alfred 52.75, Ken Farid at 48, and Lillard at 60 for a total of 433.25. And that is the first time this season that the DraftKings perfect lineup has been higher than the FanDuel one, which is pretty interesting given there's only 8 players in a DraftKings lineup as opposed to 9 on FanDuel. So some obviously huge value over on DraftKings today. Let's now look at the 8 games that are going to be taking place on Monday. The first one of those is the Frank Vogel Bowl. The Orlando Magic heads back to Indiana. There's no spread release for this one yet because we don't know if Paul George is going to play. He missed the Pacers last game with that ankle problem, and obviously he swings things in a betting market as to whether he plays or not. Now, if he doesn't play, we're going to see more Monte Ellis and CJ Miles together in that starting lineup. If George is back, you would imagine that Ellis moves to the bench, but I'm not sure how much of their value actually changed. I reckon Monte gets a bit of a bump if there's no Paul George. Miles Turner gets a bit of a bump if there's no Paul George, and Glenn Robinson will be the guy that takes up the sort of majority of the minutes if George happens to miss. Let's look at the point guards. Lord Alfred, just a casual 51 today. He's at 5,400. The Jeff Teague matchup's not difficult, but Peyton is a little bit up and down, and by a little bit I mean a lot. 5,400 is not a big price, so he's a decent guy to look at. I think he has some value in mainly in tournaments rather than cash, but he's not a disgustingly bad cash gameplay. Jeffy Teague, if Paul George is out, I like him a little bit more. He's at 6,200. He only had 28 in the last game with George out, but he has been averaging 34 across the last 3 games, which at 6,200 is okay, but I don't believe that he's the best point guard play on the board. DJ Augustine, Aaron Brooks, CJ Watson, no interest there. Evan Fournier is at 5,700, and he's basically just giving you 27 points every night, and 5,700, that's okay. It's not really very high upside in a tournament, but in a cash game, I think it's okay. Also not a good matchup because the Pacers do defend wings in a pretty decent manner, especially if George is playing. If George is out, then maybe it becomes a little bit easier for Fournier to score. As for Monte, he's at 5,600. I would rather take Fournier than Monte Ellis, although Ellis has picked up his game in the last couple of games, either without George or him playing on a bench unit. So he might be a guy that in a tournament you could pivot to, and his ownership might be low, especially if George plays in that case. At small forward, Jeff Green's at 3,800, so it's a cheap price. He had almost 20 today, which is value at that salary. Can you get 20 points out of Jeff Green again? Maybe. In a tournament, it's okay, but I don't really believe in it for a cash game situation for Jeff. But still, the minutes are there, inexplicably, but they're there. The production just hasn't come, and we know he's a streaky guy that can have these big games occasionally. So in a tournament, maybe that works in your favour. CJ Miles, I like at 4,400 in a tournament setting more than cash, but he's still a decent cash play. Paulie George at 8,600, it just feels too high for me. He just has in general struggled to get to that level on most nights this season, so I don't really feel like paying that for him. And 5,600 for Aaron Gordon, we just can't rely upon him at this stage, given the way that Vogel is using him. At power forward, Serge had 48 today. He's at 5,200. Pretty sure we can't rely upon that happening again. On a back-to-back, an emotional letdown situation, not interested in Serge here. Maybe you go with him, but I don't. 5,400 for Thad Young. Had a decent game in the last one, and maybe if George is out, I consider him. But it was 27 points in 24 minutes for Thad, and that sort of per-minute production is not something he's really flashed at all so far this season. In his last 5, he's only averaging 27 per 36 minutes. So I don't reckon he's going to be the best investment at centre. The Magic centres you can leave alone, Biyombo and Vucevic. Miles Turner at 6,600 had a big one in the last game, but it just still feels too high, that price. I don't feel keen on using Turner despite it being a good matchup. Maybe if Paul George is out, I'm a little bit more interested in Miles Turner, but in general, I don't really think he's one of the best investments out there. Let's look at the next game, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Detroit Pistons. Where are we? My Detroit Pistons screen has disappeared, so I'll get that back up. Sorry about that, guys. We'll get that back up, and we'll go on to the next game, which is the Dallas Mavericks and the New York Knicks, because my computer's being a pain in the ass. Let's look at the Mavericks and the Knicks. There's no spread released for this one either because Dirk Nowitzki is listed as questionable with his Achilles issue that's kept him out for the last few games. Darren Williams has had a setback with his injury, so he's not going to be playing. He's probably going to be out for likely the rest of the week, but Dirk is a chance to return. He has been practicing. I think he took part in half of practice, and Dirk is available on Standard League waiver wires. Yeah, for as much as Dirk is dropping off and he might struggle to get to 30 minutes, I think he still has a spot in 12-team leagues. So go and have a look if Dirk is around in your Standard League and see if he is available, because he could be a guy that, it's not often you can get a player like Dirk off a waiver wire, and at the moment he's floating around in some spots, and likely if he's not back in this game, he's going to be back most likely in the game after that. So that's good news in that respect. The point guard situation, we're looking at JJ Barea always when Williams is out, and he's at 5,800, so it's not a huge price. He's been giving you over 32 points the last 3 games, and now he takes on a Derrick Rose-led defense. So Barea at 5,800, I think, is really, really nice value in basically cash and tournaments. I think that he can exceed value in both of those types of formats. So he's definitely worth looking at it, and one of the guys that you can build a lineup around. You've got to pay 200 extra to get Derrick Rose, who's been underperforming what Barea gives you, so I just don't see any situation outside of a pivot punt situation in a tournament where I would go with Derrick Rose. And Rose has been okay, but he just is consistently feeling like he's overpriced, and that's name recognition, I guess. Happens to a lot of those sort of players. Paul George, Andrew Wiggins, who always say he's overpriced and then drops a 50-pointer today. But there are just certain guys who always tend to be priced $200-$300 too expensive, and Rose is generally one of those guys. At shooting guard, Courtney Lee is at 3,700. His upside is so minimal. I can't really see myself getting interested there. Wes Matthews at 4,700. Not interested there either. Seth Curry is the one I want to have a look at. He's at 4,200. He had a big one in the last game against the Warriors at 36. With no Darren Williams in here, maybe we get 26 to 27 minutes out of Seth, and that could return 24 to 25 points. There's a chance. I don't think he's as good an option as he was last week, especially that his salary has risen by $700. That makes him a little bit, and by a little bit I mean a lot less appealing. So I guess you can look at him, but the price is just not. It's just not. I'm not fully on board at 4,200 with a $700 price rise. At small forward, Mallow is at 7,800. He's playing really well at the moment. I think this is a good spot to use him. I do like using him. Justin Anderson, don't be fooled by the big game he had last time. That was without everyone basically on this team. So 3,900, not really that keen. 6,000 on the pencil, Harrison Barnes. He's been killing it. If Dirk is out, I'll be more interested in Harrison Barnes. If Dirk is in, he does take a little bit of a step back, so I don't know if he'll be the best option if Nowitzki plays. But if Dirk is out, 6,000 on the pencil is a pretty good investment, I think. Power forwards, Kristaps, he is at 6,800. Been a little bit down with his performances. They're not terrible, still averaging almost 34 over the last 5. But at 6,800, you might be able to get a better option out there than Kristaps at this moment. Dirk, I don't think we'll be using, even if he does play. If Dirk is out, you can take a punt on Dwight Powell at 4,100. But I think they'll use a lot more pencil at the 4 rather than Powell, especially with Andrew Bogut likely back in the lineup. As for Bogut, he's at 4,400. Without Dirk, you might consider, but probably not. With Dirk, no chance. And Joakim Noah at 4,700. You can look at Noah in a tournament, but his salary has risen by $400. That's making him very much less appealing in my mind. All right, my computer's back in business, so we can talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons are favored by 4, and the total here is 200 points. At point guard, I've got Russ. He's at 11,600. He dropped a big 77 today. He's averaging almost 63 points over the last 3 games. He's fine to use now. He historically doesn't do well against Detroit because Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a very good defender. So that might be reason enough to fade Westbrook, especially at an $11,600 price tag when you could be spending $11,000 on Jim Harden or on Anthony Davis. So consider that. I'm not sure that Westbrook is going to be the best option on FanDuel at that price. As for Ish Smith, he's at 5,300. His numbers are sort of around that 25-point mark, and that's okay, but you can do better than Ish. And obviously, Beno Udrih and Samaje Kristen are not really worth looking at. Vic Oladipo, 5,400. Tournament only. You can't rely upon him in cash at the moment. A big game's going to come. We just don't know when it's going to be. And Caldwell Pope at 4,700. He's been decent-ish, but again, I think you can do better than using him. At small forward, Marcus Morris at 5,600. Well, he won't get the pleasure of playing on Kenneth Faried again, which enabled him to drop 27 in the last game. And the matchup's okay. It's not great. He's Andre Robertson, 5,600. No, I'm not really into Marcus Morris at that price. As for Robertson, well, he's actually averaging 22 points over the last 3. He's at 3,800. He had a big one today where he dropped in 28 points. Is he worth considering? Yeah, in a tournament, you want to go cheap. You want to get Westbrook or Harden or Davis in. You might need to go with some of these guys. And a locked-in starter at less than 4,000, that has value, and that's what Robertson is. Jeremy Grant and Stan Johnson, they're not happening. At power forward, Toby Harris at 5,800. I like him at that price point. He's historically done well against the Thunder. The Thunder are allowing power forwards to put up some numbers, so I think that he's worth looking at 5,800. As for Sabonis at 4,000, he's a tournament punt. That's really about it. And you know Johnny Lua at 4,400 in cash. I think you can just get 24 to 25 out of him almost every night, it appears at this point. Enes Kanter at 5,000. Not a great matchup for him. Andre Drummond, fouling issues. the fact that they'll go with Marcus Morris and Toby Harris at the 4 limits Cantor a little bit. So I think this is one that we probably want to stay away from him. At centre, Enes Kanter's at 5,100. Centres have been putting up some decent numbers against Drummond. Adams had a quiet-ish one today. At 5,100, I think that he's value. I think he's worth looking at. As for Drummond at 81, I'm not interested going up against Adams, who has had a real negative impact on the centres that he's played against so far this season or in general. The Boston Celtics and the New Orleans Pelicans, there is no spread released for this one because we don't know if Al Horford's playing. He's questionable with a concussion. Isaiah Thomas also has a sprained middle finger. He is listed as probable, so he will probably play. At point guard, Timmy Frazier is at 5,500. The minutes are sort of there for Frazier. 5,500, I think, is a decent bet. He's probably more of a cash play than a tournament play, but he does still have value in both formats, whereas Thomas at 8,100, it's a really good matchup going up against Frazier. He's been a little bit down, Thomas, over the last couple of games, averaging 37 over the last 3. But he's he's at 8,100. He's a chance to exceed 40 in this matchup, I would say. Langston Galloway, Terry Rozier, I don't think we need to be too interested there. Marcus Smart at 51's interesting. I think he's probably a little bit too highly priced on FanDuel. Not a great night for him in the last game. But he can do better than that. He could get 25 points, but I'm not putting him in a lot of lineups. Each one more at 4,500. I don't like the Avery Bradley Marcus Smart defensive matchup on him, so I think I'll leave him alone. And Avery Bradley at 7,000. The salary just keeps climbing, and the production's been great, but it's not at $7,000 value. So I think we leave Avery Bradley alone. Same with Bud Hield. At small forward, Solly Hill off the bench. I don't care where he is. I don't think we want to use him. And Jaylen Brown and Dante Cunningham aren't interesting either. At power forward, Terrence Jones at 4,300. Well, he's back on the bench now. He had 11 points in the last game. It's a good matchup going against Boston Bigs, and it has been historically. But Terrence Jones is not a good big. So let's see how that works. Maybe in a tournament, but it won't be in any of my lineups. 11,500 for Anthony Davis. That's a high price, and that's why you maybe go with some of these cheaper guys like an Andre Robertson to get that in. Davis, you feel pretty confident of getting 50 on most nights out of him. You want a little bit more at 11,000, but 50 is good enough value if you can get, say, 6x out of your cheaper options, and it's a really, really good matchup against Boston, whose big men are yielding some pretty decent numbers to opposition. Now, if Horford is out, we look at Amir Johnson at 4,200 as a tournament play. We don't really consider Jonas Jerebko, but what we do is we look at the centre position and we look at Kelly Olynyk. Now his price has risen to 4,000. He's had 2 really good games in a row. If Horford is back, I'm less interested in Olynyk, but I still would look at him in a tournament. But if Horford is out, I think cash and tournaments is a direction you would want to go. Obviously, we're not going to be looking at Omer Asik, and even if Horford plays, I don't think that he's really, much of an option. The next one is the Philadelphia 76ers and the Houston Rockets. The Rockets are favoured by 12, and the total here is 213.5 points. At point guard, Spanish Chocolate, Sergio Rodriguez. He's at 5,100. He's been a little bit down. There are better options out there than using him. Obviously, same with TJ McConnell. At shooting guard, it's an automatic 50 for James Harden, 11,700, especially in a matchup like this. I don't think the Rockets are really good enough to beat the Sixers by 12, to be honest. I don't imagine this is really going to be a blowout situation, so I feel okay with Harden at 11,700. Pretty confident in him being able to get 55 plus in this sort of a matchup. Eric Gordon was brilliant in the last game. He's at 5,300. He's been sort of solid around that mark, so I think he has some okay value without standing out too much. And the other shooting guards, Nick Stauskas, KJ McDaniels, Gerald Henderson, very, very unappealing group. I like Trevor Ariza at $5,000. He's been consistently giving you over that sort of value now that he's down to that $5,000 value. A good matchup for him. The steals have been coming. The threes have been coming. This is a good spot to use Trev. Bob Cove at 4,800. He's historically done brilliantly against Houston. He's been in really good form. I think Covington is a very, very nice option to use against the Rockets. Sam Decker and Corey Brewer. Despite Brewer's starting status, we don't want to use him. At power forward, Ryan Anderson's at 5,100. He's hit or miss. He's a tournament-only option. No love for him in cash. And Dario Saric at 4,100. Yeah, he's been okay-ish in DFS. Feel pretty confident that he can get you 20 points, and he's got 30-point upside, so that means that you can use him in cash and you can also look at him in a tournament, at 4,100, which is not a very high price at all. And you can also do the same with Ersan Ilyasova at 3,900, who has been giving you 21 points over the last 5 games, which at 3,900 makes sense. At centre, Clint Capella, 4,600, continues to play well, but not get enough minutes. He had 28 points in 25 in the last game. He's going at over a point a minute over his last 5 games. And at 4,600, that means if he gives you 24 minutes, then he's going to pass value. I think that he is in a pretty decent spot here to get at least 25 points, which should be enough at 4,600. But we can never fully trust what Mike D'Antoni is going to do. I don't like Nene, I don't like Jahlil Okafor, but of course we love the process. We trust the process. Joel Embiid at 5,400. This is another good spot. He should be looking at 30 plus again, and he should be one of the centers that you look to lock into a lineup and feel pretty confident about it, regardless of the format of the contest. The Miami Heat and the San Antonio Spurs are up next. Not a lot to love fantasy-wise, given the two teams playing. The Spurs are favoured by 11.5. That's not good. The total is 191. That is also not good. But the positive we have is that Goran Dragic is out. It's obviously not a positive for Goran Dragic, nor is it a positive for Goran Dragic season-long owners, nor is it a positive for Miami Heat owners. But for DFS purposes, it is, because it's going to give an extended opportunity to Tyler Johnson and to Joshie Richardson. Now, Johnson is at 4,900. He stunk in the last game. He only put up 17 points, but he can be better than that. He's averaging 27 across the last 5 when Dragic played. He's going to get a little bit more of an opportunity, and I'm sure he'll be better than what he was in that last game that the Heat played. At 4,900, I think he's a really decent, cheap point guard option. The point guards on San Antonio, I want nothing to do with Patty Mills or Tony Parker. Shooting guards. Joshie Richardson, 3,800. He's done well against the Spurs in the past. He dropped 27 in the last game. He was the starting point guard basically on this team. His ball handling has improved. At 3,800, almost impossible not to use him in basically every contest format. Maybe in a tournament you go away from it, but for him not to make value would be a shock. For him not to get 5x value would be a real stunner. Danny Green at 4,300. No confidence in him really getting to that. Helpful in your standard leagues just by getting you those steals and blocks, but not enough in DFS. Manu, no. Dion Waiters, no thanks either. And Rodney Magruder had a decent game in the last one. At 3,600, maybe you throw him into a tournament. He had 19 points in just 22 minutes, but that's really the only example we've seen of Magruder being able to put up anything like that so far. Justice Winslow at 5,000. He had a big game against the Bulls, not so big in the game following that. At 5,000, he's decent value, except the Kawhi Leonard's going to be on him, so that's a shit effort for him. Well, it's not a shit effort, 'cause it's not his fault. It's a shit situation for Justice. He's not going to be able to really escape the Kawhi clutches all that well. But at $5,000 in a tournament, maybe something goes right. He did step up his game when he was on Dwayne Wade, so maybe he takes this challenge on board and steps it up. We'll see. I like Kawhi at 8,500. The blowout nature is a little bit scary, but if I'm spending up on a small forward, there's no Durant, there's no LeBron, and I do prefer Kawhi over Paul George, even if George does happen to play. James Johnson had a big one in the last one, but I don't really trust that happening again. And Kyle Anderson was completely out of the rotation for the Spurs. At the power forward position, not really much here. Dave Lee, no. Josh McRoberts, no. Derek Williams, no. Luke Babbitt, no. LaMarcus Aldridge had a decent one in the last game, and it was his best game for a while, but it still didn't give you value. He's at 7,200, and with a slow-paced game like this, I don't really see how we can use LaMarcus Aldridge and feel good about it. As for Pau Gasol, he's up to $600. He's now if he's at 600, you'd love it. He's up to $6,000. He put up back-to-back 30-point games. He has done well against Miami in the past and Hassan Whiteside. Can you put trust in Pau? No, I don't think you can. I would look at him in a tournament, and if this was at 5,200, 5,500, I'd be happy. At 6,000, you need Pau to go for 30, and that requires him to get 30 minutes. And how confident can you be? Yes, it's been 2 games in a row, but really? It's tough. On the other side, I like Whiteside at 8,400. I think 40 points for him should be pretty much a lock, and that's exactly what you want out of a center that you spend $8,000 on. The next game up is another one that doesn't look great for fantasy purposes, the Memphis Grizzlies and the Utah Jazz. There is no spread because we're waiting on news on on shitloads of guys, to be honest. Tony Allen, Derek Favors, Boris Diaw, George Hill. Over on Basketball Monster, we have our what if scenarios. We've got 7 different scenarios for Utah. What do you do if Dior's out? What if Favors is out? What if Hill's out? What if Favors and Dior are out? What if Hill and Dior are out? What if Favors and Hill are out? What if Hill, Dior, and Favors are out? Lots of different options, and that makes it really tough. Given it's a late start and we might not know any of these things before it kicks off, a lot of these players and their replacements are going to be hard to use. George Hill would be great at 6,300. I think that he could have value, but you don't want to use him because you don't know if he's playing. Mike Conley at 7,000. If he has to take on Shelvin Mack, it's a lot better than taking on George Hill. And Conley could have value, but 7,000 just feels a bit too high for me at shooting guard. The one guy I feel like is almost immune to this is Rod Hood. He's at 5,300. He's been giving you 25 points basically every night, and I feel confident that Rod can give me another 53 points. Yes, Tony Allen might be a bit of a concern. Maybe the return of George Hill does hurt him, but I think at 5,300, that's not a high price that you're paying for Rod. So I think that he's okay to look at there. Tone Allen at 4,000. I don't think we'd be interested in spending up on him. Gordie Hayward has been killing it. He's at 7,700. He's basically giving you 40 a night. That's great numbers. 7,700 is just feeling a little bit too expensive for Gordo, and you feel like there is going to be just a drop-off coming, and maybe this is the game. Jim Ennis at 4,300 gets tournament appeal if Allen is out. If Allen plays, I don't think we look at him. And it's very hard to rely upon Chandler Parsons until his minutes get back up to an acceptable level. If Tony Allen is out, Vince Carter, he's been good, but he's at 4,200. If he was at 39, I'd be very much interested there. At 42, you're hoping he gets 23 points, which might be a little bit... Yes, he's done it over the last couple, but I just feel like it's a bit of a stretch to be an ongoing thing. Joe Johnson and Joe Ingles don't really have any appeal on the Utah side of things. I would love Derek Favors if he was playing, but unfortunately we don't know, so he's a stay away. Jermichael Green's at 4,000, and he has been putrid as of late. It's a terrible matchup. I'm not really overly excited there, but in a tournament, not many people are going to be on Jermichael Green, so maybe this works out in his favour. Zach Randolph, the production's been there, 25 a game over the last 5, but at 5,400, he's priced too highly for a guy that plays 23 minutes a night. At centre, Rudy Gobert, 6,600, has been putting up nice numbers, but not enough to justify that salary. So he's a stay away, as is Marcus Gasol at 7,100, in my opinion. The last game of the night, we're looking at the Brooklyn Nets and the Los Angeles Clippers. This could be a murder, but the Nets have been playing really, really well. The Clippers are favoured by 14.5 though, so that's huge. The total is 214, so that's a concern. We don't know if Isaiah Whitehead's going to play for the Nets with his concussion, or if Wes Johnson's going to play with his heel for the Clippers. So there's a few injury things there. Chris Paul at 9,200. There is a risk, but even in the games where the Clippers have smashed teams, Paul's put up big numbers in say 26, 27 minutes. So I think that he's okay at 9,200 rather than spending say 11,600 on Russ. But overall, I'd rather spend my big money on Harden or Davis. The point guards on Brooklyn, 4,500 for Whitehead. You could punt that in the tournament if he plays, but otherwise, yeah, it's hard in cash. Austin Rivers, Ray Felton, they're not going to move the needle. JJ Redick at 4,100, had a decent game in the last one, but it doesn't really translate all that well to DFS. It is a decent matchup, but I reckon you can do a little bit better than using him. Same with Jamal Crawford. Shawnee Kilpatrick's at 55. He had 34 in the last game, and if Whitehead's out, he will start. And I think at 55 that is definitely worth a look. The Chris Paul defense could be a real concern though, so maybe that's not the best bet, but it's still not terrible. And Joe Harris occasionally goes off, but I don't imagine him to do that 2 in a row. At small forward, we know what Bojan Bogdanovic is. He's a punt play in a tournament, and this is a shit situation, so no. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson at 4,300 has been putting up big numbers. I don't trust him in cash just yet. In a tournament, I would consider it at 4,300, but I wouldn't be overly confident. And obviously, Luke Marmute and Wes Johnson, we're not going to be investing heavily in those guys. 8,700 for Blakey Griffin. I think that he's almost a lock for 40 points despite the blowout nature here. And Trev Booker at 5,600, one of the best mid-price power forwards on the board. He's been giving you 30 plus over the last 3, really doing everything he needs to do to make his signing a success for this team. At centre, I like DeAndre Jordan at 6,900. The salary is not high. The production was back in the last one, and I think him getting 35 points feels almost almost a lock. Not quite, but almost. Brookie Lopez at 6,800. He's historically done pretty well against the Clippers, but the minutes are a bit of a concern, and I'm not sure. If I'm spending 6,800, I'll take an extra 100 and take Jordan at this point. Justin Hamilton is only ever a punt play, and even at 4,400, that feels just a little bit high for a guy that is very hit or miss. Let's look at the picks of the day on FanDuel. Tyler Johnson, 49. Timmy Frazier at 55 and Chrissy Paul at 92. At shooting guard, Joshy Richardson, 38. Rod Hood, 53. And Jim Harden at 11,700. For the small forward, CJ Miles at 44 as a bit of a tournament play, if Paul George is out, really. Trevor Ariza at 5,000 and Kawhi at 85. For the power forwards, Dario Saric at 41, Toby Harris at 58, and Blakey Griffin at 8,700. And the centers, Clint Capella, 46. DeAndre Jordan, 69, and Hassan Whiteside, 8,400. Over to DraftKings. Isaiah Whitehead, if he plays in a tournament at 4,000, I think you can consider that. Marcus Smart at 54 and Ross Westbrook at 10,800. For the shooting guards, Redick at 4,000, bit of a tournamenty type play. Rod Hood, 56, Jim Harden at 12. Small forwards, Jeffy Green, 38, Trev Ariza, 51. At power forward, Domantas Sabonis, 42, Toby Harris, 59, and Blakey Griffin at 84. And the centers, Clint Capella, 49, DeAndre Jordan, 6,600, and Hassan Whiteside at 8,100. We're done. That is it for today's podcast, guys. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Check out the t-shirt store, tpublic.com/user/redrock_bball. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave a review. Subscribe on YouTube. Check out the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network. You know where you can find all my stuff. We are done here, guys. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Julius Randle.